My first initial reaction to the film, The Fundamentals of Caring, was that it was pretty sort of happy-go-lucky, pretty feel-good, and pretty overall enjoyable to watch. One thing that sort of surprised me in the beginning was how much it seemed like his mom dictated his life. It seemed a lot like his mom had, like, a lot of hearsay, and then finally when his new caretaker came, Trevor, he sort of, like, was able to gain that little freedom with, like, a little extra push, but it really, like, surprised me how much she seemed to, like, speak for him, especially in the beginning. What stereotypes did I see in this film, especially related to disability? Even when Trevor first met his new caregiver, he came out and he, like, was sort of, like, putting on a show, for lack of, like, a better word. And that was, like, one thing that we also saw when we watched the film, Me Before You. It was, like, that whole, like, chauvinistic sort of, like, very, like, stereotypical, old-fashioned, like, sort of portrayal of, like, disability. So that I definitely, like, noted that as, like, a stereotype. And then also, like, one thing that I also noticed within this film in terms of, like, oppression and privilege was that the boy who, like, plays Trevor, I'd, like, looked up this movie prior to watching it. And the boy who plays Trevor, like, does not suffer with a disability, and I think, like, within some of the scenes you can see that he's sort of basing his acting off of, like, a more stereotypical view of disability. Specifically, like, within the film, how oppression and privilege are shown. Oppression can be shown just in, like, that he wasn't necessarily able to, like, access all of the things that they went to. And another, like, thing that I sort of, like, knocked in my mind for oppression was that his mom spoke for him a lot. Of course, like, not really meaning to be oppressed, but, like, I know it was, of course, coming from, like, a good place, but it seemed like he really wasn't able, like, free to make his own choices. In my opinion, I think that as sort of the people, like, on this road trip did, in terms of, like, eliminating stereotyping and oppression, I think that people, like, in the movie just need to, like, spend time with people with disabilities. Like, there are people just like everybody else. And I think that, like, the best way to get rid of stereotyping and oppression is just education. And part of education, the best way you can educate yourself is by learning from someone who has a disability, and, like, learning how day-to-day life is, like, learning, like, the reality of it versus maybe what society might paint it out to be. And I think that that is super, super important. And even, like, how these people within the movie all, like, became so close, and there was maybe in their minds no longer, like, a question of whether or not Trevor could do something that he wanted to do. And then for number 5, this one made me think a little bit, but I definitely do think that this film portrayed disability a lot better than other videos that we've seen. So, like, because this was a movie, and a previous movie that we had watched, of course, was, like, Me Before You. I think that Me Before You, like, did, like, a really bad job of portraying disability. I think that this one definitely did a better job. It was, like, a lot more realistic. I think the encounters were a lot more realistic, and just sort of, like, the care aspect of it was a lot more realistic. I do think people would benefit from viewing this, simply because for, like, the majority of the film, I mean, of course, like, I am, like, an abled person, so, like, how much do I really know? But just based off of what we've learned in this class, it seemed pretty accurate, and it was in a kind of, like, light rom-com-y sort of way. So I do think people would benefit from this. One other little thing I wanted to add that I forgot to mention was, like, I thought it was super cool how they portrayed Trevor and Dot in sort of like their like flirty little relationship, because I think that helped to sort of eliminate the stereotype that people with disabilities like can't have like a romantic relationship. So I also wanted to add that in because I thought that that was like a super sweet aspect of the film. All right, thank you for listening to my review.